That's great. So we hold our shame really, really secret, private, toxic, and we weaponize our shame. So if you have shame, you will shame. This is a terribly depressing fact about shame. You will act out with other people, you will torture people emotionally, you will trigger people, you will abandon people, you will threaten people. It's a thing, because that's how we end up having shame, is because we do what was done to us unconsciously. So many, many people don't really know the level or the depth to which they have shame. And how much it shows up is always really interesting. So the reason why posture and breath work is so interesting relative to shame is that shame is intensely physical. We think it's in the mind. It's intensely physical. I mean, there's almost nothing more physical than a shame spiral. A shame spiral is a death drive. And I think I don't want to talk too much because it's not really a shame workshop, it's a yoga class. I've just split shame up a bit. We can have cultural shame. So if I was in India, and I used to work a lot and spend a lot of time in India, if I was in India, I would never sit with my feet out like that towards someone else. It's the most offensive thing you could do. That's cultural shame. I'm highly unlikely to pick my nose on Zoom. I'm quite likely to try to, if I needed to fart, I'd fart silently. You know, we have cultural shame. And that's something that's, you know, we're trained how to behave. Have manners, don't eat like that. You know, that's cultural shame. And that's different in every culture. And then we have projected shame. Projected shame is where you're a bastard, you're shitty, you're bad, you're stupid. That's you're fat, that you can't sing. That's projected shame. But then we have toxic shame and internalized shame. And so somebody can do that stuff to us and we can be sitting there and going, you have no idea what you're talking about, which of course would be the adult response, which, well, maybe I am fat, but is it your problem? Maybe I shouldn't have my hair cut like this, but did I ask you? You know, we can have a response that's an adult response, but when we're young, we don't have that. So then we internalize the shame and it becomes toxic. And so then we believe that thing about ourselves. So this is the bugger with shame. It's a nightmare and it's intensely physical. It's a completely vagal response. So the vagus nerve, here we have the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is an amazing thing. And tonight, as we just open the class, I'm only going to really talk about what is shame. So shame is probably, after the pain of loss, it's probably one of the most painful experiences we can have of ourselves when we really hit a shame spiral. For most of us, we can confuse depression with shame. We can confuse anger with shame. We can confuse anxiety. Anxiety is shame. Anxiety is shame. If you have anxiety, it's shame. It's a subtle form of shame. But also shame can go into a really big spiral that we can feel like the only thing that we want to do is die, or the only thing that we want to do is for the earth to swallow us up. So it's a very misunderstood emotion. And it's one of the things that will drive us to act out. So however you like to act out, and you might have all sorts of weird things that you do. You might have really bad body shame and therefore really hate your body. So then every time you get triggered, you'll either purge or you'll overeat so that you can stay with the toxicity of the shame. It's very interesting. I find it very fascinating as a thing to do. The other thing is we could use the trigger of shame to really hate somebody and get really angry and then be violent or rejecting. All kind of violence is linked to shame, any of that kind of violence. We can use our shame to allow us to act out. Well, fuck you, I'm just going to take drugs then. I don't care. I've hit such a wall. I'm in so much shame, I just might as well use. That's what shame does, is it tips us. We let it tip us. And people hold on to it for a very, very long time. It's very, very sacred because it's the one link in a way to the primary carers and the people who hurt you. So if you hold on to it, somehow you've got them. Do I make any sense? Yeah. So it's a very physical thing. Now, the thing is that in essence, when one is in a shame spiral, it's almost impossible to climb out of it. It takes a lot of adulting to climb out of it, because the first thing that you want to do is hide, run away, or attack. So we can look at shame through this class, but it doesn't mean that it's a free gift. I don't come with a magic wand that says you do these 6 classes and you will be magically free of shame. What you might get from these 6 classes is you might get the ability to reflect a little bit on shame, and you might start noticing, and you might think, now, isn't that interesting? Carolyn said that anxiety is shame. That's ridiculous. Or is it? And that's the bit that you might get, where you might just think, hang on a minute, why am I'm feeling anxious because I feel really inadequate. I'm feeling anxious because I don't trust myself. Who am I to trust? So then you suddenly can make a series of links that can take you back to like, now, isn't that interesting? I didn't. So then you wake up a little bit. So if that's really my purpose. Does that make any sense? So let's do it. So here we are. If you're feeling really anxious, here's the thing. And of course, everybody's completely off their tits with anxiety at the moment because you're all looking at the news and social media, which is very bad for you, beautiful people. You're just paying for advertising every time you look, but that's okay. Interlock your hands, pull your hands apart, make your arms vibrate. So we're opening the series with a trauma therapist's stretch to release the vagus nerve. Keep breathing. Do you remember I said that shame is the vagus nerve? Keep breathing, raise your chest. Keep breathing, raise your chin, raise your elbows, your armpits stretch, and all of a sudden your body is a different place. Take a long, deep inhale. Hold the breath. Turn as far as you can to one side and exhale. Come back to the center. Inhale. Turn as far as you can to the other side and exhale. Your eyes could possibly close if they weren't. Roll your shoulders and bring your hands either into prayer pose or crossed on your chest and just mark what's happening. Notice. It's like a curious standing down, a trickling through your body, a release happening. Just stay with that for a moment. Maybe no breath, maybe no mind. If you were triggered into anxiety or shame, that would release it, weirdly. Inhale. Hold the breath. Squeezing anus, sexual organs and belly. Flare the ribs, tighten under the ribs, tighten the neck, drop the chin. These are the body locks. Long, deep exhale, holding the breath out. Squeezing anus, sexual organs and belly. This is the root lock. Flare the ribs, tighten under the ribs. This is the belly lock. Tighten the neck, drop the chin. This is the neck lock. Long, deep inhale. Holding the breath, pulling, tightening, holding, containing. And exhale, holding the breath out and pulling the lock. So every single time you're resetting, you're saying to the system, no, you're mine, you're mine. I've got you. Inhale. And as you bow forward on the exhale, you're bowing to whatever you relate to as an internal divine source or force. That is the opposite of the shame, inhaling up. Bowing forward to whatever you relate to as an external source or force. Inhaling up. And bowing forward to perhaps gently gaining a little bit of understanding of shame. If you're new to working with shame, the absolute truth is that if you hit shame, and even with this understanding, it's highly unlikely that you're going to release it, I have to say. And it's not that I'm trying to be horrid, I'm not. It's just what it is. I'm sorry, my iPad is making me glow. We have this terrible tendency when we have shame to weaponize it, which means we will abandon, we will go silent, we will retract, we will hurt somebody else, we will say something awful, we will act out. That's what we do. So don't expect a miracle. It's about learning. So we're going to start with breath of fire.